Hey friends, I recently put out a 2-hour long deep dive on the history of Shantae and all the games in the series. It may be that some of you haven't seen it or haven't had time to watch it yet, fair enough, it's a long episode, or just some of you will appreciate this reminder because I'm making this short video to give you another quick heads up. I'm uploading this video on the 15th of August and there is currently a 50% sale on all previously released Shantae games, but it ends on the 19th, so depending on when you see this, you've less than 4 days to take advantage, and these prices are insanely good value for what is one of the greatest indie series ever. If you don't know the series or can't afford to buy them all, today I'm going to point you in the direction of the third game, Shantae and the Pirate's Curse. Put simply, it's one of the greatest indie titles ever made, in my opinion. Crazy high quality, huge Metroidvania with a ton of replay value too. A game that if you want a physical copy is so sought after nowadays that you maybe will have to pay $500 or even $1,000 or more sometimes. But if you get in before the 19th, you can grab a digital copy for just $10. You might want to check out my full episode for a rundown of the full history and reviews of every game, but for a quick review of Pirate's Curse specifically and why I think it might be one of the best $10 that you ever spend, here's what I said about the game early on in the full episode. As I say, this isn't sponsored. There's no kickback for me selling copies or anything. It's just a friendly word of advice coming from a genuine, massive fan of the series, but who got into it a little bit too late and only discovered how much I love the games after the physical copies of some of them became some of the most sought-after games of all time. So now if I ever want a full physical copy of every game in the series, I will have to remortgage my house. And that's pretty tragic because I actually rate Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, especially as one of my favourite games of all time, easily in my top 10 favourite games, and one that is a huge inspiration to me as a game dev myself, and is also single-handedly responsible for me making my own cute cartoon Metroidvania with a magical female lead, quite different to Shantae, but she does have purple hair, and it's one of a tiny handful of games in my nearly 3 decades of reviewing games that I actually think is probably flawless. No notes. I own it digitally on multiple systems and replay it regularly, but even as a shelf collector who always prioritizes physical games, I sadly don't own a boxed Switch copy because it would cost me like $1,000, and right now I just can't justify that. Sigh. And then here's the full review that I gave. I truly hope that this encourages some people to give it a try. If you can't tell, I'm pretty passionate about as many people as possible playing this game. Again, no kickbacks, I've no skin in this game, I just absolutely love the game and I want to share it with people. The third game released, full title, Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, came out in 2014. It's by far my favourite game in the series and actually one of my favourite games ever made. Again, as in Risky's Revenge, it takes everything from before and then just massively improves upon it. The pixel art graphics are even better. The character portraits and art style are to me the best that the series has ever been, though the sexiness is at peak here too, and it was subsequently toned down a little bit for the next 2 games, so I suppose which one you prefer will be up to you. The third game even starts with Shantae being interrupted whilst having a bath, so there is some playing up of the fan service here, but again, as I said before, there's nothing non-family friendly in my opinion, but the slight ramping up of the sexiness does up the age rating from E10 to teen, so it's no longer, according to the censors in their infinite wisdom, suitable for a 10-year-old, but it's just fine for those 13 or over. I don't know, it seems arbitrary, but there is nothing pornographic or explicit in any way here. There's implied nudity, but only implied. It's mostly just some bikinis and sexy poses. And again, the art style is just amazing. The use of colour, the shading, the line work is gorgeous. To me, regardless of the sexiness, it's just peak 2D game art and 2D pixel art as well. It's just as good as it gets. It's gorgeous. The plot is a similar setup to the last two games, but with a twist. Scuttletown is attacked, but not by Risky Boots this time, but a new villain called Ammo Baron, a warmonger who has tricked the mayor into selling him the town, who even places Shantae into lockdown for trying to fight back against this decision. Risky Boots then turns up and accuses Shantae of robbing her because her henchmen and multiple special pirate items are missing, but they both quickly realise that a dark magic is taking over, and Risky says that the evil pirate master must be trying to use the dark magic to return and take over Sequinland, which would be a disaster. So Shantae must sneak out of lockdown and go on a big adventure to find all of Risky's missing pirate items so they can work together to defeat the pirate master. Of course, the big plot difference is this time Risky is not the main villain, but her and Shantae work together. And this time there are multiple endings depending on how you play the game and if you collect all the items, etc. So the fate of Scuttletown and the outcome for Risky and Shantae's relationship actually does rely on you and gives plenty of reasons to play through the game on multiple runs. The biggest change is that, for reasons I won't get into because spoilers, for this game, Shantae no longer has her genie powers and she can't transform, but instead, each new pirate item she collects gives her another platforming move or method of traversal, which is actually something that I prefer. I like the animal transformations in the other games, don't get me wrong, but they are only used in very specific places and circumstances, and they also take time to perform because she has to do the dances. This game is far more reliant on more skilled traditional platforming than the previous entries. The more moves you learn, the faster and more efficient at navigating the platforms you become. And by the end of the game, you really have to be very good at knowing all of the moves and combining them in the right ways to be able to complete the last sections. It gets very, very challenging indeed, and it's all the better for it. It's excellent. And of course, from a storyline perspective, Shantae wants to get her magic powers back, so it gives you some storyline motivation to keep going to the end of the story and get the good ending too. Once you complete the game for the first time, you unlock Pirate Mode, which basically means you get to play through the entire game again, but having all your moves available from the start. So you really can try to perfect speedrunning the whole story, which is really fun and gives a lot of replay value as well. The whole map in general is much, much bigger here. There were some arbitrary memory restrictions with Risky's Revenge. Because it was a DSiWare game, download only, they had quite strict limits as to how big the games were allowed to be. They couldn't be as big as dedicated cartridge games. No such worry here. This game is enormous. And as such, you have multiple different islands to travel between and use Risky's pirate ship to navigate between them, which is really, really cool. It gives more visual variety. It makes you feel like you understand the whole kind of geography of Sequinland a lot better. It expands the world and the existing lore. Of course, all the main characters return, but there's also some new ones added here as well who become series staples and appear in later games. The dialogue and humour is really stepped up a notch here. For me, yes, this is notably different to the last two, but in ways that make it better, as long as you don't mind the very mildly more suggestive humour. Like the previous game, there is some voice acting, and more of it this time around, but this time there is a new voice actor, Christina V. Christina V, some of you may know, is a prolific voice actor and also singer. She has dubbed the English versions of many anime series and video games, and as I mentioned, she's also the English voice for Miraculous Ladybug, a French series that I love, which Way Forward previously made a game for. Shantae and the Pirate's Curse is the absolute pinnacle of the series, in my opinion. It perfected everything. It's not that the later games are bad. They are actually very, very good, and I'll get to them in a few minutes. But it's just that, to me, Pirate's Curse isn't just the best Shantae game. It is, as I said, in my opinion, one of the best games of all time. It's in my top 10 games for any system. It's basically a perfect game in my books. Literally, my only complaint is I don't quite understand why such a ridiculously high-quality game only got such a tiny short-run release, making it practically impossible to own the physical copy nowadays. But thankfully, it is available digitally pretty much everywhere, and that is a very good thing because it means everyone has the opportunity to play what I consider to be an absolute masterpiece. In fact, it's something that's always puzzled me. When I look at the contemporary reviews from when it came out originally, yes, they are all positive, but it's mostly 8 out of 10, 4 out of 5, 80%, etc., rather than 9s or 10s, and frankly, I don't understand. The main complaints I see are that the map has been split between separate islands, so it's less of a traditional interconnected Metroidvania map because you have to travel between them on the pirate ship, but to me the game is so much bigger than the previous ones, and the pirate ship element makes it really cool and feels more expansive, and as I said, being on the ship and going between the islands, it makes the world feel more real. The only valid in inverted commas, complaint that I can see is they did remove some of the fast travel options, and there is backtracking. You can't get around that. But for me, this is clearly a conscious choice. The traditional platforming mechanics here are far more emphasized in this game. As I said, by the end, you need to be really skilled at platforming, but the game does a great job of teaching you through its level design along the way and learning a move and a move and a move at a time, that by the time you get to that really difficult platforming challenge section towards the end, you are fully equipped to deal with it because you've been trained along the way. It's beautifully designed. And the extra abilities you learn over time make the traveling far more fun the more you play. So the backtracking is actually part of the challenge. It gets faster the more you expand and the more you master your moveset. So as long as you're good at playing the game, the backtracking isn't a problem. It's actually fun. It's very quick. It becomes faster and faster the more moves you learn. And it really, to me, if you're saying, oh, there's too much backtracking, to me that sounds like a skill issue. Feels like you don't fully understand how to use the moves. It feels perfectly designed and balanced to me. I don't feel that the backtracking is unnecessary. If anything, it just makes you really appreciate the scale of the world, the fun, satisfying traversal. It increases the sense of urgency, too, of having to hurry to get to the next part in time as quickly as you can. So, yeah, I don't want to say that the people complaining didn't get it. It's obviously just a matter of taste. But for me, the things that people complained about are part of what actually makes me like it more than the previous titles. And even those people who complained still gave it good reviews, 8 out of 10, 4 out of 5, 80%. You know, they didn't say it was a bad game. They just, had a few tweaks that they would have given. But for me, those things that they complained about actually make it better. Your mileage may vary, of course. I'd honestly be very interested to hear in the comments whether you prefer Risky's Revenge or Pirate's Curse. But for me, Risky's is my second favourite game in the series. An easy 9 out of 10, probably deserves a place in my top 100 favourite games. But Pirate's Curse, as I said, is in my top 10. I said in my DK Bonanza review that never in my journalistic career have I previously given a game a 10 out of 10, but that's only because I didn't play Pirate's Curse until it was in that humble bundle and therefore didn't review it professionally. If I had, it would have been my first 10 out of 10, without a question. As for the game's release, it was first released on 3DS, but a Wii U version followed just a couple of months afterwards, 2 or 3 months afterwards. It got good reviews and was the best-selling in the series up until that moment, and it finally got a true physical version at the time it was released, though sadly only for the 3DS, as the Wii U market wasn't really deemed big enough to support it at the time. Fair enough, I suppose, but it's a shame. It went on to become one of the best-selling 3DS games, presumably, at least partially, because of all the contemporary hype about Game Boy Color physical version being so pricey. People thought, oh, maybe this 3DS physical version will become pricey in the future. But nowadays, as for what to play it on, as the Wii U version released just a few months after the 3DS version, it was clearly designed with both in mind, so there's no debate of, oh, you should play it on 3DS because that was the original. No, not at all. The 3DS version is just a lower resolution version of the Wii U game. As far as I know, there's no differences other than that. And the Wii U game, being in HD, is basically the same thing that you get when you play any modern version. There's no director's cut style shenanigans here. All the modern versions are basically the same. You might have included artwork or wallpapers, etc., and the screen resolution might be higher, but as it's a pixel art game for the most part, the extra resolution makes little difference. Now I think about it, both the 3DS and Wii U technically had two simultaneous screens. I'm trying to remember if the second screen was ever used at all, maybe a touchscreen menu or a map that was permanently there rather than having to be brought up with the button press, but frankly I'm afraid I don't remember. It's been many years since I played that Wii U version. All my recent replays have been on the PC or the Switch, but if there was any kind of second screen stuff, it obviously wasn't important enough for me to miss it or remember it now. Basically what I'm saying is you need to play this game, and nowadays it's available literally everywhere. It doesn't matter which version you pick. However, to me, because it started as a Nintendo exclusive, as did the previous two games, to me, Shantae is just the iconic Nintendo indie character, especially for the history of their handhelds. So nowadays, playing it on the Switch or Switch 2 just feels right, doesn't it? And as with the other games, right now it's half price again. However, this time it does make it $10 rather than $5, because it usually costs $20 rather than $10. But still, that's $10 for what is, in my opinion, one of the best games ever made. And even if you don't love it quite as much as I do, it's still insane value. This game is so much bigger than the previous ones. If you don't want to go the whole hog and buy every single game in the Shantae series, but just want to dip your toes in, for my money, you should start here. $10 is just an absolute bargain. I mean, frankly, I also think you should also pre-order the physical copy of the new game while you have a chance. But yeah, if money is tight or you don't care about physical collecting, just start here. Pirate's Curse is amazing. A slightly bigger game download-wise, obviously, because it's a much bigger title, but this comes in at 497 megabytes, so just under half a gig. Still nothing to worry about, and frankly, that's very well optimized, as this is so much bigger, with so much more animation, so many more characters, locations, beautiful character art, etc. Well, that was funny / sad / informative / stupid, wasn't it? Feel free to mentally redact to make that make sense with the clip that you just heard. I don't know what it was. I'm just recording a bumper. But if you enjoyed the clip, please give it a like. If you'd like to hear more, click subscribe, and you can find all the ways to listen to and support the full daily podcast at linktree/dailyswitch2. That's linktr.ee/dailyswitch2. Let's go! Did I sound like I mean that? I do. I really do.